Here are three types of companies that should get ISO 42001 certified. And for background, I'm Walter Haydock, the founder and CEO of StackAware. We help companies manage the cybersecurity, compliance, and privacy risk of using AI. And we also help companies achieve ISO 42001 certification. So, number one are AI-powered B2B startups. These types of companies usually hit a point in their sales cycle where it's quite difficult to close enterprise deals without a certification, and many of them turn to SOC 2 or ISO 27001. These are fine choices, but for companies where AI is a central part of the value proposition, it might make sense to go for ISO 42001 first. And that's because the standard covers security and privacy from an AI perspective, but also broader topics such as environmental impact and ethics. So having that sort of certification for a company, which can usually only pursue one at a time early on in its life, might make the most sense. The second type of company that should pursue ISO 42001 certification is a larger one that's training on sensitive or customer data. So companies like Slack, DocuSign, and Zoom have taken a fair amount of heat in the news to varying degrees over their AI training policies. Now, I've done analyses of all these things, and I think in some cases the outcry might have been a bit overblown, but in some cases it is more justified. So the key issue here is that there aren't really well-established industry standards for what is acceptable when it comes to training on customer data. ISO 42001 doesn't directly address this need. What it does do is create a framework for building a risk management process to come up with these types of AI training policies. So if you have an ISO 42001 certification, you could reasonably tell your customers and other stakeholders that you have a solid internal process in place to make these types of decisions and to communicate them externally. And in the end, I think the problem that a lot of these companies had really had to do with transparency or a lack thereof, or a failure of communications. The third type of company that should get ISO 42001 certified is one operating in a heavily regulated space, primarily healthcare or financial services. People in these organizations tend to be a little more conservative when it comes to adopting new technologies, and that makes sense because the stakes are substantially higher than in other sectors. Now, that makes innovation somewhat difficult because there is a huge requirement for consensus and understanding of best practices when it comes to a given technology. Now, with AI, ISO 42001 helps jumpstart a lot of that process and give people a sense of reassurance and comfort when they're adopting something new because it is certified by an external party that the technology is being deployed in a sound, secure, ethical, and appropriately managed manner. So the top three companies that should consider ISO 42001 certification are, first of all, AI-powered B2B startups. Second of all, companies that are training on customer or otherwise sensitive data. And then three are heavily regulated enterprise, specifically those in healthcare and financial services.